Alright, I'm going to show you how to solve an equation using algebra tiles. Now, I gave you a link to this algebra tiles website, and that's what we're going to use. Now, we're going to start by getting one of the equations that they have for us. So if I type in here, solve a given equation. Now they're going to give me an equation. I don't want this. That's too easy. I'm going to go to a two-step equation. So now I have the equation 2x plus 2 equals 4, and I want to solve that for x, which means I want to know what 1x equals. Now, if we look at these, the way it's set up, these are 2x, and those are positive 2, and these are 1, 2, 3, 4s. So each one of these unit tiles stands for 1, the plus would be a positive 1, and the minus would be a negative 1. Now if I look over here, these are x's. This would be a positive x, and this one would be a negative x. Now, it works on the assumption of this, that one positive and one negative equal what? 0. So if I put them on top of each other, then they disappear. Now the same thing works with x's. So I have one positive x and one negative x, and when I put them together, I get 0. Okay, so I want to solve my equation. Now, the whole idea is that I want to get these x's all by themselves. So I want everything else on the other side. Now, if I want to get rid of these 2's, or these 2 pluses, I can add on 2 negatives, because I know that when I put a positive and a negative together, I'll get 0. But remember your golden rule. If I add 2 negatives to this side, I better add 2 negatives to the other side. So I'm going to put on 2 negative 1's on this side as well. And I can see in this little equation here that I added on 2 negatives, and I added on 2 negatives over here, so my equation should still be equal or in balance. Now let's go ahead and get rid of our 0 pairs. There's one, there's another, there's another, and there's another. Now all of a sudden all I have is x's on this side, and all I have is units, or I have 2 1's, or just 2. Now here's the only thing I don't really care for algebra tiles. You can't really divide. So what I do is I break up my x's. So I have 2 x's, and then I want to put these into 2 groups. So I have one group there, and I'll have one group down there. Now this way I can easily see that 1x equals 1. So if I go down here to check my solution, it's going to say, you haven't isolated the variable yet, keep working. So what I have to do in this case is I have to just take away one of these x's and put it back, and I have to take one of these 1's and put it back, because I know that 1x equals 1. I can check my solution, and what happens? It says well done. Now I can also take an equation that I was given. If I go to model or solve an equation, and I look at the one on page 41, the first example, it says solve 3x plus 5 equals negative 7. So I'm going to model that. And I have 1, 2, 3 x's plus 5, so I want 5 1's. Okay, so on this side I do have 3x plus 5, and I can see that there. And on the other side I have negative 7. Now I have to pull 7 negatives over here. Okay, awesome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set both sides equal, and then that gives me my equation at the very top that says 3x plus 5 equals negative 7, and that's the problem that I want to solve. So if I think about, I want to isolate the variables, which I have 1, 2, 3 x's, so I would like to get rid of these positive 5's. So what I'm going to do for each positive I have, I'm going to add on one negative. All right. However, remember that I have to add, if I add 5 negatives to this side, I better add them to the other side as well. It does take a little while to drag them all over there, but still kind of cool way to solve equations. All right, so there we go. Now I notice that I haven't zeroed out all these zero pairs yet, so I'm going to zero that out. Come on now. There's 1 zero pair, 2 zero pairs, 3 zero pairs, 4, and then 5. Now remember, the whole point of this is to have nothing but x's on this side, and I've had that accomplished. So remember, I'm going to split these up into 3 groups. Sometimes it's easier if you put them over here to see that there are 3 groups. Alright, so now I have 3 x's, and I want to split these up into 3 groups. Well, I have to think, well, how many groups, if I want all these 3 groups to be even, how many of these will be in each group? And I can see that it should be 4. So there are 4 negatives in this group. There are 4 negatives in this group. And there are 4 negatives in that group. So visually, I can see that what does 1x equal? Well, 1x should equal -4. Okay, so I can solve it and say x equals -4, or if we want to do it the official way, let's just take all these things away other than one grouping. Bear with me a second. Whoops, didn't drag that one. Alright, then all of a sudden, I can see that 1x does equal -4. I check my solution, and it says well done. Okay, so that's using algebra tiles. What I want you to do is solve the rest of them that are on page 141.